welcome to the Sunday Show with Neil de Beer, the president of the United Independent Movement and a huge BizNews favorite. Welcome, Neil.
A very good morning on the Sunday, Chris. Always a huge privilege. And Chris, again, more than 100,000 views this week. And the show just keeps on growing.
Let's talk about the future of the Government of National Unity. President Cyril Ramaphosa and DA leader John Steenhuisen had a lovely lunch. What did you hear?
Yeah, I hear from the beating of the drums, Chris, that this was essential. I think after Davos, after the total shambles in intercommunication of the GNU regarding the land appropriation bill and the manner that it was done, there was no way out except that John and Cyril had to get into that pressure cooker. But finally, I understand some of the steam was let out and that there is an amicable discussion. Chris, I'm not surprised because I know both of the gentlemen. I know both of the characters, and both of them, I think, when choosing a path, would rather sit in a deliberation than to go at war. And I think solid minds that are satisfied that they can reach a goal is currently needed. We do not need the continuous fight in public, the hostilities between each other in cabinet. And more, Chris, I think people are waking up to the reality that the Government of National Unity, no matter what you call it, is currently trying to settle and find a way. It's not easy. I've been in deliberations, as you know, of opposing parties, of people that really want to get to the guts of the other. But you've always got to ask yourself one question. What would 60 million people do? A real leader doesn't get up and take a decision because he or her decides in the mood and flurry to take decisions unilaterally. They carry a country, and we will always say to each other that rather this than the upbuilding of a draconian monster called MK that is trying desperately to do anything. So yes, they had lunch before the Cabinet Lekgotla. We understand that certain terms were discussed. Indeed, the NHI is on the table because that is the next one, Bella, land, NHI. And I have noted in a press release this morning, Chris, that John has tabled that with the president. We keep on praying that the GNU does carry on. But I can tell you clearly that the country is looking at it. The country will always observe on it. But interesting times building up to so now within the next couple of weeks. And I think the test there of whatever was happening in the pressure cooker meeting with John and Cyril will be shown in the speech of the president, because there would have to be some recognition of what the DA and the rest of the parties would like to have the president speak. So going to watch that with a clear view. But for now, it seems the Potjiekos pot has been stirred, opened, calmed, and it can be given back.
Well, meanwhile, with allegations of wrongdoing flying, Neil, I know you've been doing the maths of the ministers of alleged crimes. What's your tally?
Currently 21. Chris, shocking.
Who's
this
heading?
past two, would this say again?
Who's topping the list?
Well, Chris, I'm going to read it because, I'm getting older and I don't have the blessings of a memory. But let me quickly make this country's stomach turn like if it is riding on a roller coaster outside Cape Town. And may I say, these are so-called allegations, many allegations, of ministers and deputy ministers that were at municipal level, where they were absolutely charged, and some of them allegedly still out there. So I'm going to ask our listeners to beg with me when I read this, because the list is too long. Paul Mashatile, Deputy President. Stan Matabata, Deputy Minister Landrofo. Mondi Gungubele, Deputy Minister Communications. Angie Motshekga, current Minister of Defence, although she doesn't understand it. Kogislano Ramaphosa, Minister of Electricity. Blaiden Zamande, Minister of Science and Technology. Enoch Gongwana, Minister of Finance. Bernice Swartz, Deputy Minister of Forestry. Aaron Motsoaledi, Minister of Health. Joe Patla, Deputy Minister Health. Yambuza Nunzuza, Deputy Minister Home Affairs. Tandi Muraka, Deputy Minister International Relations. Gwede Mantashe, Minister of Mineral Affairs. Senzo Mchunu, Minister Police. Kassel Matala. Kumbutsu Natsaveni, Minister on the Presidency. Pinky Kekana. Stella Ndabeni Abrams. Gaitan Mackenzie. Pina Manjoni. And Parks Tau. If you go onto a Google listing, and if you go into internal documents, if you go and screen the highlights of the judiciary, I say this, all the names I've just mentioned, allegedly, in one or other format, have been known to be charged or to be investigated, or there is something against their name. That's a long list. Now, no matter if they are found guilty, no matter if they are guilty, no matter if they have or have not appeared in court, just the mere fact that your name is connected to a municipal scandal, to a financial scandal. I'm not talking about judicial process. I'm talking just about your name. Now, Chris, in this country, we are starting to get used to the fact that if a person is allegedly, is suspiciously connected to something, we know the truth is there. So a list of 21 people, no matter what they were charged with, be it Bosasa, be it Zondo Commission, be it tied to municipal mismanagement, or just the allegation, to me, is wrong. And I just wanted to highlight that today, that if there's going to be a change in this country, it's got to start with clean, very clear leadership with integrity. You know, in other countries, Chris, if something happens that has happened in this country, the people automatically step down. But in this country, the more you do wrong, the more you put Prit on your backside, then you stick your glue, never to leave that bloody seat. So I think the time will come when we will stand as South Africans and say to each other, nay, nay, we will not accept that a minister can stand in a position and not removed. And if Cyril wants to do this rejuvenation, like John said, they need a reset. They need a reset within the GNU. Well, because we need a reset on ethics. We need a reset of integrity. That's why we as citizens must demand that if you take the oath of office of a minister, that immediately every quarter you must go through a process of integrity check. You must be looked at your lifestyle audit. You must open your funding for scrutiny because we are paying you. It's not like you are sitting there and earning money through a dividend on your own backside. So to look at a list like this, where people allegedly are being said, but you committed fraud, you took money, you mismanaged. This is an indictment on whatever level we have, and therefore I have always asked lifestyle audits and if necessary polygraphs. Because if we cannot have you open yourself to scrutiny, then allegations like these, Chris, will never stop. And this country will always sink their eyebrows and go, but are you real or are you actually hiding something? And this is something I will keep on bashing because in conclusion on this matter, accountability is something that we leave to Parliament, but it seems that now in Parliament, they cannot sort themselves out, so they go to court. Yes, Chris, the new Parliament of this country is courts. And this is a shocking shame that 400 people currently in a tent and still in a tent can't sit down, deliberate, and come up with what is good for you and I. And that is something we must this year hammer on, because Cyril says that he is in favor of lifestyle audits. Well, Cyril, do it, but go one step further. Publish it. I dare you.
Neil, as if the Democratic Alliance did not have a dramatic enough week, another of its mayors got ousted by the Freedom Front Plus. Is that the fourth one here in the Western Cape?
Yeah, I think the latest one, if I'm not wrong, Chris, is in Swellendam. I also understand that it is again the Freedom Front Plus and the ANC that were the main standards of absolutely removing a DA buyer. We were under the impression, and it seems falsely so now, that last year Dr. Pieter Groenewald and John had détente. They did sit down, and that they said that they will reaffirm the partnership that they have created in the GNU to also function on, can I call it, the LGU, local government unit. Chris, this does not seem to have helped. And it's very weird that it is only in the Western Cape where the majority of this is happening. So again, here we go with the beatings of the drum, the smoke beyond the grassy knoll, that it's Corné Mulder. And I saw a very interesting article where people were saying that the continual disregard of keeping unity as what it is on a national level is the current breakage, apparently, between Pieter Groenewald and Corné Mulder. And this is not boding well on any level in that relationship. Now, Chris, you will remember, I was part of that conclave when we had the moonshot pact that we ran for more of a year. And all that we can say is at that level, there was a good working relationship. So I fear this war, if you want to call it, of words, of attrition, of absolute power separation is not going to end by the looks of it. And I say, if there's mutiny on the bounty, in other words, as daar nou gemors is op hulle dingie, they must sort it out. Because it is a matter of facing a unified conclave when we have to fight 2026 to keep the beast out of the door. So I hope they get their things right. Pieter Groenewald, although being a stern, very straightforward shooter, has to bring his people in line, or we will continue suffering a DA Freedom Front fight on the midline, and while they're fighting about the soup bone, the cat's just going to go take the tail.
Neil, there's going to be an urgent parliamentary debate on the disaster in the Democratic Republic of Congo. If you were there, what would you be saying?
I think, Chris, may we also just recognize that last night, soldier number 14 passed away. And I think we cannot be serious enough, compassionate enough, if we weren't patriots of this country, to say our heartfelt condolences to every single family of those 14 members. Chris, it's worth spending a couple of minutes on this matter, because I have now, obviously, as you know, the past week, directly climbed in from outside to go inside, because it is atrocious. I always say one of the greatest enemies that have been created in this century, funny enough, is social media. Although it is brilliant and encapsulating, it has a dark side. It has a matter aspect of evil attached to it, because everybody has a camera. Suddenly everybody has become a pseudo-journalist, and almal kan maar nou mondspoel soos hulle wil. The problem is fact check. You know, you come from a litany of journalism, Chris. You've dealt with some very intense situations within the crime, intelligence, and the dark side of this country. But one thing you've always done, which I know you have a huge focus on fact and truth. when you sit with a cell phone camera, you don't have it, but you can spread it to 1 million. I at one stage, Chris, received 265 WhatsApps a day, just on photos coming from the DRC. Some of them duplified, triplified. Shocking. But here's the facts. No matter how Angie Motshekga is trying to sell this, and Bantu Holomisa is trying to back her up, this that happened in Congo, in Goma and Sake camp, was a failure, was a dismal, sad time in this country's view of how to defend itself. Generals, retired generals. And yes, Chris, people on cell phones out of Camp Sake calling journalists and telling them what's going on. So it's not a matter that they can suppress any truth anymore because of social media. The calls of that lady soldier to report, the calls from a son to a dad, those last desperate moments, is now factually on record. So here's the story, Chris. Now the fight between President Kagame and our limping, gutless president, who now apparently is being challenged by the president of Rwanda, President Kagame, on a lie that he apparently spoke of after speaking to Kagame. Now, a warning. President Kagame is not a negotiator and a sit-seat president. This man was in the bitter genocide of Rwanda. He was trained as a soldier. So when he puts on camouflage, a beret, and takes an AK, then I am sorry, you better take his threats credibly. Because Cyril didn't serve a day carrying a limpet mine, AK, RPG, or a rocket launcher, as far as I know. So you're speaking not to a guy that is just the president of a country. When he threatens you with war, he's being in the theater of war, with respect. So now there is the story, and the two things critical about what is happening in the DRC. Just this paragraph where Kagame writes on Twitter and then does a media statement to say these two following facts. Just these two. That President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a telephone call with President Kagame, admitted that it was not M23 soldiers that killed SANDF soldiers, but in actual fact, it was local soldiers. It's there, it's in writing. And secondly, he says that if South Africa does not stop interfering and does not keep out of the current domestic fight, that if this country, South Africa, wants conflict, that Rwanda can accommodate conflict at any moment. In other words, war. 2 months ago, in Parliament and in discussion, the members of the SANDF and Defence said that they are under budget, they are cut, and they are coming to the point being non-effective. Angie Motshekga 2 weeks ago on a live TV program is quizzed and is asked to her face, is the SANDF battle ready? And she says, yes. And a week later, we are under attack and we fail. Now that is salt in a wound. And if I was the Minister of Defence, I have already publicly said what I would do. I would re-establish my mandate. I would absolutely prepare myself to move from peace to a combative mode of attack. I would harness everything I have, and I would make my operational mandate change to secure not just the whole area of Goma, Sake, but that whole East Bloc side, and finish and make it clear. And if I cannot do that, I would unilaterally pull back my men and women from the theater of war. Chris, on Wednesday, I wrote a letter with 24 scathing, in-depth questions to Angie Motshekga. Publicly, I went to Parliament I went live on my social media platform and I walked and was escorted directly to her office. She was not there. Maybe a good thing. But I went into her office and I handed that letter directly to the media and secretariat of that office in their hands. They knew exactly, by the way, who I am. But at the same time, I also emailed it. Ping pong. So hand and pos. So she must have it, and if she doesn't have it by now, I will keep on delivering it until I have to buy 92 reams of paper. Maar daai brief sal sy kry, and to that minister, thank you for not even acknowledging my letter yet. No wonder you tried to find comma on a Mac. Chris, and then to put the cherry on this cake, the icing on this flambe. Did you know that the current leader of the Defence Force, the commander, General Maphwanya, on his uniform has two insignia that he carries, and I'm telling him today, this is stolen valor, General Maphwanya. Chris, can you believe the audacity of this so-called leader of the Defence Force wearing a Special Forces, what we call Recce, operator's badge on his chest? And then on the other side is wearing parabat wings on his left chest. Nou die ding kan nie as uit 'n Cessna uitdonder. This man apparently was given a honorary Recce operator's badge and was then also given a honorary 44 Parachute Battalion badge. Full wings. He hasn't jumped once, not even out of a drone in his brain. And he wears a Special Force operator's badge, the laurel wreath with a dagger. Now, Chris, hear me well. That, in my opinion, is stolen valor. What is stolen valor? Stolen valor is when you adopt a military insignia when in actual fact you did not qualify. You will know, Chris, in my military career, for a very brief moment, I was in support staff of people that were operators. I know them. The operators of the Special Force unit in this country are some of the most daring, brave men I know. And for a man to stand there and wear their badge, which they absolutely sweated blood and tears, to me, only probably to me, is shocking. It's a shame, because how dare you? And his excuse, by the way, is that within the military ordinance, it is allowed that a person gets given an honorary badge. But I don't agree. To become a Special Force operator in this country is a huge thing. It is a blood and sweat thing. It is a brotherhood thing. So if they are silent on it, I am and have never been privileged to be an operator, but I am in support and was in support of them. I know them and I know how they see that special badge. And then, to double it up, you get a parachute wing. Well, here is a challenge to General Maphwanya. Why don't you meet me at Cape Town Airport? I will pay for a tandem parachute jump with you. Maar wragtig hoor my, jy gaan gil en jy gaan skree soos 'n ou wat nou net iets vasgeklep het in 'n engine cap. I dare you, I will live jump with you. because I would like to see if you've got real balls to jump out of an airplane, even if it is a Cessna. But trust me, I don't even think Red Bull will give you bloody wings. Sorry, Chris, I had to get that off my chest. Because that uniform means much more to me than just a uniform. And if we can raise and ask McDonald's to give us a couple of free burgers and chips, I would like to bring an audience. Want daai gemors wil jy sien hoe hy afkom. Anyway, shocking. Sis, I don't like it and I reject it. I must tell you, I feel much better now.
I can tell. From the military to the police. 4 cops out on bail for helping the tiger escape.
Chris, how do you lose? How do you let go? The main kingpin of the current Zamas. I mean, you can imagine they get him out of the hole, they arrest him, they drive 12 kilometers, and then they let him go. And now we've had 2 days ago the arrest of 4 police officers. Now, Chris, again, every organization in the world has a dark side. Any company in the world. But this is, again, the narrative. What's going on within the policing service? We have zero confidence in them. This man, Tiger, or Kitty Cat, whatever it is, if you gave him to us, then definitely little puppy boy, is let go by the actual policing service. So, hundreds of thousands, probably millions being spent at Stilfontein so that they can get them out humanitarianly, charge them, and get rid of them. And we find the queen bee, because as I understand it within beekeepers and those, is that if you can remove the queen to another place, the rest follow. We found the queen bee in his hole. But instead of taking him and putting him into a prison, we put him in a van and then he lets go and walks away. Travesty of justice. We will look at this. We will definitely look at this. And sadly, Chris, now we notice another matter, and that is, I'll say it, one of my favorite police officers, which is the police commissioner of KZN, slowly but surely now being boiled like a frog. Chris, this is sad, because if there is someone that you and I have spoken about so many times, it is the police commissioner of KZN, who also, by the way, is a member, and he doesn't carry it on his uniform, false valor. He was a member of the police task force, and he can wear those wings with pride. Suddenly, because he's throttling the people in KZN that are in the dark, the amount of people that he has arrested and sent early to grave is now being frowned upon. And we will have to watch that story very closely, because here we go again. It seems that when you do your job too good, suddenly you become the pariah. And if I was a member staying in KZN, would be very worried if they removed that commission.
And I think behind the scenes, there's jostling for the position of the next commissioner of police. And there are those who would definitely not want him to take that seat, Neil.
Well, Chris, I don't want it. I mean, again, it's a stifling, bubbling administrative ball. And what all that we get is waffle. We don't get psych introspections. You will know from members of the police, which I'm very much connected to, boots on the ground, Chris. And not boots on the ground because ETV or CNN is there. Boots on the ground because you will lead your operatives to absolutely annihilate crime. So I am not impressed with Massimo Sobole, whatever way he goes. He's not a leader as far as I'm concerned. I would say that because the KZN commissioner is absolutely starting to make inroads, and there is this public affinity for action, I think they would rather chop his head off now than the distinct possibility that he might become the police commissioner.
That's the impression I'm getting, that they want to prevent that.
Chris, in politics, it's an ugly scenario. I mean, there you now get in court, shockingly, Tudizile Zuma, who stands in court now because she's now being charged with public violence, incitement of violence. She stood there a lone figure, but behind her, her dad and her brother and the rest of the conclave. I must tell you, though, I had a smirk on my face. Because in this country, too many times, people think that they are above and beyond the law. And what people must remember, Chris, is that the judiciary in this country, the law and order factor, is the difference from us going to the jungle system or being evolved into what we call moderate law. That lady was tweeting hundreds of messages while the most severe looting in this country was taking place. She now dons this public smirk of being a politician. And again, Chris, another one of the 400 in Parliament that should not see the dawn of light. So I will be watching that very carefully as to see which way they go. But we will be reminded, we said that we will never see Zuma in jail. We did. So this one, I hope again, if she is guilty, will be removed. And then, Chris, I fear MK will again have to reshuffle.
Meanwhile, her father, former President Jacob Zuma, has indicated that there's going to be a mass protest at some point and that a date will be announced. Neil, have you seen that?
I have, but this is the stirring again of an entity that continually needs to go into a mode of disruption. We know how they operate. They have continually said that it will be mass protests. It will be huge scenarios of disruption on every point. And the closer we get to 2026 in the municipal elections, the more that will happen. What I'm worried about, Chris, is that, I don't know if you remember the rumble in the jungle with Muhammad Ali, and I think it was George Foreman. And the whole fight, I remember, Ali was just taking the shots, wearing down George Foreman so that when he's finished, he could bash him. Now, I don't know how many shots Dalian Pofu can still take going to court and getting more. I mean, this, that it's absolutely crazy. It's futile to sit that.
Neil, you were going to add up. You were going to tally up the number of cases Dali Mpofu has lost, remember?
Oh, I'm going to. That will definitely be next Sunday. Hoeveel keer het hy al stips op sy moer gekry? Because this person is like a honey badger poking his nose into a great field of honey, maar die bye steek en boor hom elke 2 minute. He just doesn't give up. And now he's gone and he said, but damn it, you cannot use the word GNU. So MK, at a large expense, goes to court and said that it's not a government of national unity. And here's the great one, that at all the SABC may not refer to the GNU as the GNU. And then he got on his moor. Well, Chris, at the same time, kettle, pot, black, why don't they take themselves to court for using a name, a emblem called Umkhonto with Sizwe, and then charge themselves? Because they're as guilty as hell. It's not their logo. It is not their history. It is absolutely only certain amount of people that can claim, like me, to be a MK veteran. So I can't wait for the opportunity, in God's grace, to go and sit opposing them and calling each one of them out to their credential. More stolen valor, in my opinion.
I was just going to say another case of stolen valor. Lastly, Neil, the dramatic week ended on a low note with a little bit of load shedding again.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Chris, how do you make 80-year-old woman say damn at once? You scream bingo. How do you make 60 million people say moer in 12 different languages at the same time in this country, you say the word load shedding. Kyk, ek sê nou vir jou. No one on earth, when arriving at an airport, standing in a queue, would appreciate if a very, very large person walks up to them, puts on a set of gloves, and looks for lubricant. This will be the sign that your journey is going to turn ugly while you arrive home. Now, I felt the minute that my lights went off that a perceived enemy is on my way, and I could look over all my neighbors and they were all frowning in the same way. 300 days, 10 months, yippee-ki-yay, we did not have to switch on Weber's, put on the gas, and look at our schedules. And a very good person wrote something which I will end with. We sat there and applauded Eskom providing us power, which is their job. We actually stood there and saw Mini-Me and Mini-Mo dunked in snow in Davos, clapping like a pair of seals that are going to be fed a brilliant piece of fish, and went onk, 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 because the seal was eating fish. Now, how destructive, how quickly did the snow evaporate when finally we were getting what we thought, load shedding. So, Chris, we will not applaud a governmental institution for delivering what they must deliver. Yes, well done. But we now see the cracks. We now understand again that it is the biggest mood dropper, Chris. You can't say that load shedding is not a mood killer in this country. And it came sudden. It wasn't even prepared for 2-3 days. So yeah, I noticed this morning though on Eskom's, must just get this right, Chris. Eskom's push. Oh, there's an app. Eskom's push. Sorry for those people that lisp. But I see suddenly they cancelled Sunday load shedding. Because I personally think Tannie Ina, wat in Welkom bly, threatened them with murder because she can't do her roast lamb. So I want to say, free at last. We have now got a little break again, but I don't think it's going to be the last of these lapses. So we must now get ready. And Chris, here's the thing about South Africans. To wrap up the show. One of the greatest things about South Africans is our tenacity. One of our biggest failures is our tenacity. Want 'n boer maak 'n plan. 'n Engelsman sê dit 2 keer. En die normale op die straat vat dit. So, Eskom load shedding, Weber, braai. Potholes, we go fill it. Grass too long, actually weed eater vat. This is the attitude of South Africans, that we don't wait for someone else. We do it ourselves. But by doing that every time, you are just making government do less and less. So, let us keep them on their toes. Let's warn them when necessary. And without a doubt, look at Biz News on a Sunday, where you will only get the absolute truth. And last week, 100,000 times.
Well done, Neil. Thank you. That was Neil de Beer, the president of the United Independent Movement, on the Sunday show with Biz News, and I am Chris Steyn.